Welcome back into the ESPN Esports studio. Darin Kwilinski here with you, and we're coming off that hugely successful Overwatch League Dallas Homestand weekend. And to help us break it all down in our moment of the week, brought to you by Omen by HP, Xander Torres. Welcome back. Lovely to see you. Now, this felt like a traditional sporting event, Xander. I was there. It was loud. You had Dallas fans. You had Houston fans, you had concessions, you had beer, you had chanting, you had signs. Everything was there to make it feel as big as possible. Now, what did it feel like for you at home?
For me, someone who's been watching esports events online for a really long time, I think it really felt like a finals experience to me. It felt like I was watching an OGN finals. It felt like I was watching a finals for League of Legends. It had that atmosphere where this match super mattered, and this match was like the death or the life of all the fans in the stadium, and I thought that was super cool. Except it wasn't. It was a regular mid-season match between, two rivalry Texas teams, so that was exciting. I think that it was a really nice peek into geolocation and to what it can mean for esports and like what it brings to fandom. I think that overall it brought a super exciting atmosphere for online viewers as well. For me, for Twitch chat, for anyone who is watching on TV, I think having that extra level of energy makes it even more compelling to watch, even if you don't know what you're watching.
Absolutely, and I want to ask you a follow-up question about geolocation. Now, with this Dallas homestand in the bank, we have Atlanta and Los Angeles coming up. But this was a testing ground, an experiment for Overwatch League events in the future. How do you think they did? What would you grade it? And do you think it'll be as successful in the future?
It's really hard to give everything a 10. This is something I would want to give a 10, so I'll give it a 9 because that's to be safe. It was a super exciting setup. It was perfect. You put it in a state where you had two opposing cities. I don't know the cultural history between Houston and Dallas, but it seemed like the fans were super into it, and the people who live there were just ready to get on that rivalry. The stage looked fantastic. The seats were filled. I think they produced it very well. Obviously, there was that unlucky power outage, but that had nothing to do with Blizzard or anything like that. So overall, I have to give it a very high mark for what it was. And I think if they could do that every single time, then that's amazing. That's something that no one expected from the league, honestly. So yeah, we have to give it a 9. It's going to be among some of the best experiences I think you can have in a geolocated esports world.
Absolutely. Now, speaking about that Dallas Houston match, they took it 3-1 over a very scrappy Houston Outlaws. We weren't really expecting that after they got 4-0'd the day prior. What do you think?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it either, especially since the Fuel stomped that first map, AKM. It was even prompted to put up the 4-0 on his camera, and they were just like, okay, this is going to be a stomp. The fans are going to get exactly what they want. But maybe the fans did exactly what they want. It just wasn't exactly what they pictured. They got a super cool 3-1 match, and Houston was really putting their all, like the entire match, no matter what. They had, a lot of intelligent compositions, and I think while they're definitely still one of the weakest teams in the league, maybe the crowd actually jeered them into doing more. And I think that's a pretty exciting thing to think about if the fans could continue to pump the emotions of even opposing teams. That's another thing that makes geolocation so interesting is players who can use that as fuel to make themselves better rather than to be pressured to do worse.
It was an incredible atmosphere, Xander, that Dallas and Houston match, the back and forth, the chants, everything like that. It made it really, really special and unique. Now, a few other surprises that happened this weekend real quick. Chengdu upset London 3-1. And the Valiant, despite losing, put up a really hard 3-2 fight against Seoul. What do you think about those two matches?
So I think a lot of Spitfire fans are kind of used to the team slipping up when they're most expected not to, almost. It's just like if they're supposed to do bad, they're going to do good. If they're supposed to do good, they're supposed to do bad. And Chengdu has that kind of upsetting energy almost. They have the DPS comps, they have the wacky style that can really throw teams on edge. So I think a team like London, who's really susceptible to just like falling over themselves, it was honestly a pretty exciting match, but I also wasn't terribly surprised. It was just how it was supposed to go almost. Like this is what fate had for the Spitfire and the Hunters. And as for Valiant and Seoul, I think Valiant has just been pushing really hard. They only have something like 2 wins this season, but I feel like they're much better than the other worst teams in the league. They're not a Mayhem, they're not a Justice. They just had a really tough start, and they're not really at a level where they can take maps off of super good teams. The Valiant, they're gonna need a lot more, and they're almost certainly out of the whole playoff picture, but I think we're gonna see more from them in the future, and they're gonna continue to bring us those close 3 matches.
Now, Xander, let's look ahead towards the next homestand, which is, of course, Atlanta, week 5 of stage 3. No Battle of Texas storyline here. There's no in-state rivalry. There's really no rivalry teams at all. The best thing that I could look at was 6 of the 8 teams are East Coast based. So maybe a battle for the East Coast. Is that enough to get you hyped?
So I guess since Atlanta is a new team with, new players, there aren't really any rivalries to look at. There's not that inbuilt Texas rivalry to really do something, right? And there's no teams like in the area apart from like up north. So maybe if Atlanta upsets New York Excelsior again, that becomes like an interesting thing to look for. Maybe they play again. I don't know the schedule, but yeah, I think in general we're looking at East Coast. Maybe some kind of rivalry will develop in the next stage that will be, fueled by that homestand. But I think we should expect maybe a little less than the Dallas one. That one was just extremely electric, and Atlanta will just be its own thing. We'll see how it comes along.
Absolutely, Xander, and we'll be looking forward to it. Thank you again, as always, for all of your time and insight. And for more Overwatch League coverage, you can keep it locked right here on ESPN.com/esports.